is sense destructive to action. Over the years I've read thousands of introductions here. A common thread I'm seeing follows the following format: A, I have 3 ideas, X, Y, and Z. B, none of them meets C. X is missing entry, Y is missing scale, and Z is missing a mix of both. D, I don't know what to do. The problem with this mentality is that it causes you not to engage the market. And market engagement or not, is what causes you to personally grow, gain skills, and even uncover newer or better opportunities. Just because something isn't initially, doesn't mean you should ignore it. Can come into play after years of engagement, not in your first week. Also, if you're just looking to scrub up some wins and some small cash profits, is probably the last thing you should be looking at, but just need. Folks, don't complicate this. Exists as a guiding framework for entrepreneurs who are looking to do things bigger than they've ever done. But if you've never done before, I wouldn't let it stop you from starting. Do something. Anything. Small wins, small profits. Take swings at the plate, learn how to make contact. Once you're ready to go into the deep end of the water, can be insurance policy that your effort pays life-changing wealth versus bill-paying profits. Very good point, but it's fair to say the end piece of is always necessary, right? I think sometimes you just figure out while you are at it. It is impossible to have all information regarding before you start out. My biggest takeaway from TMFL was action over everything. If you never start because of or lack of confidence or a million other potential reasons you have failed, trust me, I've let myself fail for years from analysis paralysis or imposter syndrome or I don't know enough. You don't fail if you've taken action towards a goal you've learned. Let be the guardrails that guide you towards bigger success once you're already on the road. Totally agree. Action creates momentum, and once you build up enough of that you can become unstoppable. None of my early businesses met all of the criteria, but I haven't had to fill in a job application form in close to 25 years. Unless you purposely manufacture your business model around that core rather than looking for needs and picking the best fit, it's not the framework that is destructive. It is the act of overthinking. And if you'd given any other framework, even a very simple one, people would overthink and not take action. I'm sure that if all you said was, take action, go sell something that people need, people would be overthinking, what action should I start with? Making a website? Should I learn to code first to build my website to sell what's needed? And what is needed? Do you think people need toothpaste enough, or should I sell something else? People are afraid to take action without having all the answers. They don't realize no one has all the answers when they start. I should know. I was one of these people. Yes, definitely. Without need value, money doesn't move. I've certainly felt like that myself with business ideas. I have an idea for something, half-ass it, give up, or have an idea, turn it over in my head and never give it a go. Weirdly, or maybe not, I see a similar process with my guitar students when working on more creative exercises, or when I ask them trickier questions. Sometimes, to find an answer, we have to poke at the question. Try a few things out, start with an assumption, work through the consequences and see if it works or not. Sometimes we have to sit and think about a question for a few minutes to get the answer. But quite often, if we can't answer a question straight away, we assume that we don't know the answer, when in fact we do. The answer just takes time to come to mind. It's like our brain is a slow hard drive that needs a second to find the answer. I've actually tested this with students before. Asked a question and said they have to sit in silence for 5 minutes until someone gets the answer. No one answers straight away. But after 1 to 2 minutes hands go up. To bring this back to what you said, we have to try a few things out. It reminds me a bit of a principle from the book Psycho-Cybernetics, which said, to massively paraphrase, "Thanks for the thread, MJ. I've been sitting on an idea for a few weeks now and I'll get it online this weekend." Know a person who read a couple of years ago now. He still haven't got idea that meet the big facts. Years of neglecting money chasing, hustling, and just taking action has led to skills and the ability to do better things, some of which still don't follow to a core. But that comes with time, like you said. One thing to keep in mind is if you do enough mental gymnastics, you can convince yourself any business violates if the competition has a big enough budget. 100% spot on. The business I'm working on is something I want to use, personally or professionally, and I'm pretty sure it meets most of the criteria. However, I haven't given it too much thought and don't want to waste time worrying about it being a home run. Deep down I know that whatever experience I gain from the process will get me one step closer to a real fast lane outcome. Thank you, MJ. An important thread. I believe you even said in your books you don't need all the elements to get started. Honestly, I can admit that conveniently became an excuse for me to take action. Quite ironic, actually. I would get an idea that seemed pretty awesome. I then think it through a little more, and what you know, it didn't meet or one of the other 3 simple, but powerful letters. Ah, what a relief. Now I don't have to do that thing anyway, which is pretty sweet, because it all seemed a little uncomfortable anyway. Carrot, that's my main problem and probably other entrepreneurs' main problem as well. Quite frankly, I'm not taking action because my ideas don't meet in my mind. I have to please people and be acknowledged and appreciated by them. And after 10 awfully unsuccessful cold calls, it becomes too much. Too much shame, too much self-blame, too much self-doubt, etc. And then what do? We look to rationalize why it's okay for us to be taking any action. Because if we succeed in that, we can stop taking action with good conscience. After all, it is way more comfortable to stay emotionally safe than risk bothering other people and being told no and eventually hit the spot and start the journey to creating the wildest and most fantastic entrepreneurial adventure you could ever dream of. I found it was. When I first read your books, I dismissed everything that didn't meet. I felt lost. The books plus this forum is a lot of information to take in a short space of time. At the end of there's a paragraph that says, doesn't intrinsically lead to paralysis. It's your mindset and your choices that determine whether you will take action or not. If someone uses that as an excuse, I think the deeper issue is that they aren't committed to process. They're still looking for an event. I am in an early, small win stage, where I am violating the commandment of time. But that doesn't mean I cannot take action. I can do something, and that will lead me forward, develop my skills, and improve my ability to take bigger action. This thread is exactly what I and a lot others I'm sure needed to read today. Sent from my Nokia 6.1 using TaperTalk. To start something is not always easy, but it's not always the starting up what leads to procrastination. Sometimes you're stuck when your business is running fine and you are afraid to expand and are in doubt if does apply. That's the situation I'm in now. My business is running fine, but to go fast lane I need to start to scale and find more clients, therefore I need to do certain things. But I don't do those things. I'm procrastination and putting things off. Overthinking too much and ask myself if it is really fast lane. Apart from the time everything else does apply. Control, entry, need, scale. But it's no problem that I have to put in time. As long I'm making profit and making real money, profit margin 40 to 60% before taxes, and put this profit in investments or other businesses that not require much of my time, I can go fast lane. The problem is that I don't take any real action to expand my business. Why? Because I'm afraid of success and in the same time I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid of both. So I keep thinking and thinking if it does apply and if I'm in the right business and if it's not better to do something else. In the meantime, totally ignoring everything else what's written in and execution is king. I know that I have to start to execution thread or ask more around not only on this forum but everywhere. And I have some great contacts. But I keep putting things off and keep thinking now is not the right time. I'll wait when the right moment comes. Thanks MJ for the reminder. I must also say, I'll admit that in my first days here, I was pretty disgusted with this forum when most of time, all you folks said was take action. I actually formally took action around last year, when my girl was showing signs that she didn't like what I was doing with my progress. Got onto Upwork, and got a few jobs. Earned around 1 or 10 of the minimum wage in a few months. Learned a lot on working with other people, over-delivering, setting expectations and being resourceful to get info from industries I knew next to nothing about. I went to my first meetings. Found a few great groups and a few scams along the way, but that's in my progress thread good, right? I slipped back into my past scripted attitude of just getting by with studies, reading without action, and letting my Upwork progress slip. Then, around February this year, I saw exactly what would happen if I didn't work fast enough to reinforce my actions and behavior to unscript myself mentally and physically. A relative of mine placed too much of his time on a girl, to the point that when the girl broke up with him under some silly conditions, he just fell apart. Instead of dealing with the problem himself, like a man, he just spilled everything to his relatives and parents. And of course, family drama followed, plus we discovered that he really effed up his life. We are talking about having next to zero networking with successful people, crap grades, hanging on to toxic people that needed to be cut off ASAP, plus shitty mindset on motivation and value creation. Basically like seeing a plant near death under a scorching Arizona sun. Read up Atomic Habits. Pushed myself to follow the F-King habit stacks I wrote for myself, and raided my Upwork profile and revised my proposal writing style. Spent nights firing off messages and creating real relevant samples on the fly, not fake shit 100-day challenge headlines, at Azure. In a few weeks, I was shocked to find folks coming in. I had to raise my rates 2 times in a row once the 5-star feedbacks came rolling in. On Monday, I'll be having an interview with a top Singapore email marketing guru who is partnering with an upcoming Amazon trainer. If all goes well, the starting rates will be nearly. When I first started out, I counted twice on a calculator to make sure I wasn't wrong. Plus, he'll be giving me daily work of up to 3 emails, so I'll not only be making bank, but training my copywriting under even more challenging situations. I had just done articles, landing pages and product descriptions that my past clients never discussed their conversion rates before. Plus, rebuilt my connections with the good folks there by offering samples and free help, and in a few days' time, I'm going to a private entrepreneurs event that is typically a closed event for outsiders. I attended a neighborhood meeting in my new place I moved from my accoms to save the rent. I filled my plate with food from the buffet, hopped to a table, greeted and introduced myself cordially to the folks there. I discovered a guy who owned some units there to rent out, plus a young chap who's used to study at my university and is working at a startup based in Singapore. Damn, surprised to find people with track records, in an event where folks just went to eat. When I came back home, I had to listen to the same old tired drivel from my relatives and friends about their shitty college and workplace folks that they had to deal with. I suddenly realized at that moment that I could drop bad friends and make new friends very quickly, anytime that I chose. And I roughly knew where to find good relationships, and how to grow them. I'm not exactly there yet, But the crazy thing is that all this happened in that's rounded up to around 46 days. For that, my dear fast learners, thanks everyone. Really happy, yet ashamed of myself, at the same time. Totally agree. Should be a direction and we will figure it out along the way. This is exactly what I was thinking the other day. The end goal should always be to eventually create a type business, but people are just using it as an excuse to not get started on this on my field. My strategy is to go into online retail in a niche and gradually transition into creating a product brand within my niche because I don't have enough money or knowledge to create my own product brand just yet. This business should follow the rules more closely. It's very difficult to create a business from the start because they have high barriers to entry, which often means you need either lots of money to start them or you need to have highly specialized, difficult to acquire skills or sometimes both. Ironically, these problems will become your strengths if you can make it work because others won't be able to compete as easily. Wow, very inspiring, just a very inspiring post. Respect emoji 109. Yes. Perfect is the enemy of good, or it's easy to do nothing perfectly. Besides, I've heard many anecdotes about entrepreneurs failing at their first 3 to 4 ventures before making it. The venture I'm thinking of is far from perfect, wise, but it has the potential to easily morph into something else. Perhaps there's even a software angle that will manifest itself. Sitting around waiting for the perfect idea or opportunity is letting the sands of life's hourglass drift by. Better to put your best foot forward and start learning and improving at entrepreneurship. Readers are waiting for an event in which they find an idea that completely follows. How ironic. If you have to start out as an arbitrager, then so be it. Simply buying low and selling high in different markets. Then once you know the insides and secrets of that market, you can maybe move in with something that meets. Once you know how sellers and buyers behave in that market. Because after all, the common denominator in every market is human behavior or decisions. Usually when you create a product or a service that's completely yours and you own all the rights, then it can easily fit the model. These days you can sell franchise rights, set up independent contractors, set up affiliates, etc. I took the framework as an ideal. It's something to aspire to. An outcome that you want to aim for. A filter for selecting markets and considering your long-term options. I admit, I've been guilty of hand-wringing about this. Not that I ever needed much of an excuse to procrastinate. Right now I'm doing some unscalable work in freelance hell, mostly just so that I'm doing. And you know, being in the grind is rewarding in its own way, getting in touch with different markets, making contacts, feeling like I've gotten real work done at the end of the day. Excellent, that's the message to anyone who hasn't done nothing but read a few books. I can't remember where or who may have posted it in the forum, but they said something like, you can't start your journey in a Ferrari, you may have to drive the beat-up Honda for a while. I always took applying to what you already know. That's the fastest path. Trying to create of what you don't even know seems like the impossible. Great point. Fill a need, provide awesome value. Figure out along the way. Personally, I think figuring out how to leverage into a business is really fun. Helps me stretch my critical thinking muscle. Very true. I had this mindset that I had to strictly comply with any venture I came up with, and nothing ever happened. On my current venture, I developed the product, planned out the logistics, set review times to adjust course along the way, and leapt. Doing so has been the best time in my life. The actual learning has been exponential, and the lessons can be applied to anything you decide to engage the marketplace with later on. Do I currently tick off all the boxes to comply with? No. But is there a need and hence a market which I can engage in? Most definitely. For me is a great framework, pure gold, to be honest, and an ultimate destination to strive for when developing and implementing your business or It can't be taken as an excuse to not start executing. Here's a great example of someone taking action, not overthinking, not worrying about for now. No, because doing it takes like 10 minutes, and if you know that the commandments can be fulfilled with effort down the line, then it shouldn't get in the way to make the decision. Let's say I wanted to start a business selling a supplement that helps people with their problem. I found my market on Amazon, on Facebook, and in convenience stores. Control, low, but not non-existent, because we're on multiple channels. No single point of failure. I may or may not own my own formula. If I do, more points here. This will go up the more I work on it. Entry, Amazon, low. Facebook, medium. It takes some know-how to media buy. Convenience stores, medium. Takes some know-how and some balls to talk to the number of people you need to talk to. Being ubiquitous, high. Entry barriers, in this business, will go up the more I work on it. Need, I've identified the need in this example. It helps a group of people with a specific problem they have. Good. Time, we're good here, too. I can sleep and make sales. There is a necessary variable time investment, mainly in dealing with the Facebook buy can hire out, the Amazon account can hire out, and dealing with C-store stuff and warehouses and stuff can hire out. Also goes up the more I work on it. Scale, clearly is there. Amazon's the world's biggest retailer, Facebook has 1.9 billion people on it, and in this example, I'd be in C-stores all over the country. The question then becomes, okay, what are my requirements? Ultimately you need to solve all of the requirements fully, but you don't have to from the start. If you know that you can gain more control and entry over time, which are the most likely to be poor when you start, then it really shouldn't stop you. #MeToo. Just out of curiosity, if was a weighted mathematical formula, would the elements be of equal weight 20% each? What would the end score represent to you? Is it inane to attempt to place a number on something so qualitative? My weighting. Need and scale most important. If you make billions working your ass off, you just bought time. Control is a risk factor. You can violate control for years and get away with it. Entry is a competitive measure that impacts need and scale. 10% control, 15% entry, 40% need, 10% time, 25% scale. I sold a company for 7 figures that started from zero. It met the commandments of need, time and scale. It violated the commandments of control and entry. Knowing this helped me recognize where my business was vulnerable. Even if your business doesn't check off all of the checkboxes, you can still put your SWOT analysis through each of commandments to understand your market position. Interestingly, it's somewhat aligned to the 80 or 20 principle. Focus on 2 of the 5 that matter, 65% of the commandments equation. Sent from my iPhone using TaperTalk. I agree that action is necessary. If you are a person with several ideas, however, I think it's important to work through each one to see which one might make more or sense. I think first and foremost you need to be sure you are fulfilling a need while being in control of your time. I would really feel like I was wasting my time not trying to develop my business based on a need. All businesses evolve, so the way you approach your business and apply would too. If this is mentioned in the books or previous posts, apologies, but for the need criteria, how does this apply to luxury goods? No one needs a platinum watch, but there is demand. So are these two terms interchangeable once you have established there is demand? And are synonymous. No one needs a $550,000 Lamborghini Aventador SV, people desire it. Obviously luxury goods need rarity and quality combined with luxury branding. This was one of my issues after reading, had a few ideas, but none of them seemed to come to fruition because of fear being commoditized in a crowded market. I took your advice in and decided to sell. I sold just about everything from tools to GameCube controllers. If a snail desired salt, you better believe I was ready and learned a lot during this journey. So in the last year, I've done $6K plus in sales through eBay, and about $8K 10K plus offline and other platforms. Also made about $2,000 selling a website to a local business. Thanks for the motivation and helpful tips in his post. But the step has been where to go after this point, because I don't really have a product or service, just have been buying and flipping items unless you count the web design deal. I built up sales experience, now just have to develop and market the right product or service. Take those sales skills and get it in front of something people need. You got the skills, now get a business model that can scale. Thanks, I have the salesman skill, just have been stuck finding that business model that can scale. The 2K web client took about 2 to 3 weeks with minimal follow-up, but I think what closed the deal was the tip I took from you, where when they ask for a price, see exactly what features they want or need. Anyways, appreciate all the advice, we'll keep pushing forward. Whenever I am feeling a bit down or depressed, I realize there is one thing that can help me feel better. A win. Building up winning momentum is one of the most important things you can do in life. As someone that is new here, and is currently listening to for the second time on my commutes to work, this topic definitely resonates with me. I struggled with this for about a month, as I literally used as a checklist when I had ideas. My background is in software development fresh out of college, so when I saw threads like going into web design, I was hooked, almost as if the ideas infected my brain. But still was hesitant and frantically trying to think of ways to separate web dev or business dev from my time. Ultimately, I found this style of thinking stupid because I hadn't even started or created anything, and I eventually dove headfirst into developing an idea on the Android market while going through the process of freelancing web design. All I can say from my perspective is that this place is absolutely $!gold and stumbling across, and have honestly changed my life permanently. Shit, even the fact that this thread exists and that MJ is critically thinking about his own process is mind-blowing to me. I am still a peon and in the very beginning stages of all this, but I have to say that this forum, MJ's books, and the many amazing people on here are nothing short of incredible. Not every day that you come across life-changing stuff, you know? Cheers everyone, and I sincerely thank you for the action I am currently taking. Taking action and then correcting until it meets sounds better than setting my whiteboard on fire with idea rewrites. Sign me up. Very interesting. I was just thinking about this over the past weekend and posted a little about it in my current progress thread. I have a business that violates entry, but I know the industry really well. When this problem occurs to me, 1, this thread appears, and 2, I get to chapter 21 in that specifically talks about how you can get around entry problems through exception execution. Lately, problems have been sorting themselves out when I keep my eyes open. Is this that dang #thesecret that life coaches keep spamming at me on Twitter? I thought about the distinction a lot between wants and needs as well after reading your books, because it was not 100% clear to me if you thought they were synonymous, and if so, why? I actually ended up coming to the same conclusion, that they're usually synonymous, but in a different way, with a larger emphasis on the why they are the same part. Consider the expensive watch. Everyone would say it's a want, since people are presumably able to survive without it. It's not like food or shelter where if you don't have it you die. But in what sense is it a need? Here are my thoughts. When talking about things like luxury goods, we should dig deeper and look at what benefits the customer gets, and what problems these products solve, since the vast majority of purchases are in order to solve problems, or because they have the expectation that one is getting something worth more than their money. So, what is gained by ostentatious spending? I would say things like a dopamine rush, or maybe status or prestige. There can be other things as well. The irony is that these two things are also actually needs if you make the connection. Consider Maslow's hierarchy. A dopamine rush is in a sense a physiological need, level 1 on his pyramid. Everyone needs to feel good. If someone feels bad too often, things like depression and poor health follow. Status or prestige. Level 4, esteem, or basically respect from one's peers. TL, doctor. A lot of wants are secretly needs underneath. Absolutely. I fully 100% believe in the framework. But after years of watching people do nothing, I also believe meaningful action, small wins, and self-development is important too. Maybe your first business just solves a need. Great. Maybe your second has need, and control, and entry. Awesome. Maybe your third starts with everything but scale. The point is, always be working and progressing. A firm's identity, self-esteem, illusion of respect as you mentioned. I like that approach. Like most people on here, I have no shortage of ideas, but it's really difficult to get one by the go all tender. For years this stifled me. As of the last year or so I've pursued ideas which don't meet all the criteria, but I'm still comfortable with, either because of low upfront costs, an easy exit strategy, or opportunity for long-term passive income. This also goes against entrepreneurial monogamy. However, for me, at this point, is where I want to be. I'm learning, meeting new people and finding where my strengths and weaknesses lie in pursuit of that one thing that will get me where I ultimately want to go. Agree with. I think it depends on the entrepreneur's situation or experience. It's just meant to be a guide, and you can be successful initially with only 2 or 3 checked off. I think there is an order of importance. 1 needs, no question, most important. 2 entry barriers directly related to need. Crowded markets don't need another supplier. 3 scalability or time separation. I pair these 2 together because they're very similar. If you are starting a business that is trading your time for money indefinitely, you might as well get a job. 4 control, least importance, but still important. Sometimes the degree to which a business satisfies a need can overpower the others. I had an opportunity 2 years ago to become a digital signage provider for a few large companies. They wanted to replace their in-store signs, paying $20 or sign per month x 250 signs. The system takes maybe 1 day of maintenance a month. I never thought I'd get in the business. There are suppliers out there already and not a ton of need for new options. But the opportunity came to bid on that job, and that $5K a month is completely passive. As I go through this, it now seems clear that getting to your first liquidation event or exit event as quickly as possible is the key. So need and scale seem key. Once you sell and create that success, you can re-enter with better knowledge and experience. As you get to a certain size, reviewing your weaknesses from the model like said are key. Looking at current business, control, check entry, massively huge check need. Check time, extremely poor at the moment scale, smaller ceiling than I hoped. My next business will satisfy time and scale or I won't do it. In my experience, it's the same with every framework, entrepreneurial or not. There are people out there who just take action. Like this guy I worked with who just decided to start a company and spent 2 years working on it like crazy. He ended up shutting it down, and arguably he did make a bunch of mistakes. He also made some side cash along the way, $100K, and met a ton of people including myself, so in the end it was not even wasted. He is now working 9 to 5, but is making a lot more money because of that experience. However, those guys are rare. Other than that, the next category are people like myself. Those folks often have a MSc or a PhD in something quantitative, or in something requiring enormous attention to detail. If you are a software developer, engineer, accountant, analyst, physicist, researcher of any variety, lawyer or paralegal, even marketing specialist, you fall into this category. Then you will frameworks because they give the world certainty. Suddenly you feel like you know, but you don't. If you are one of us smarties, the solution is to getting a mentor instead might be a good idea. Otherwise you might be under an illusion that you are making progress, while you won't be. It's also very hard to put those idioms into context without, or even with experience. For example, I knew a guy who kept saying how easy it is to raise money in the Silicon Valley, that if only you have a big idea that can scale, funding is not a problem. Surely, it is relatively easy, but that is not a productive mindset when you have a startup. It was easy, until the investors suddenly stopped giving money because they wanted progress. Suddenly they realized that a grand vision was not sufficient if the team cannot execute. Then I know this lady, also very smart, who is struggling to make the ends meet. Literally struggling to survive. She will tell me all those theories, as to why her real rate is $250 an hour. You know, why people should outsource to her because their time is more expensive, so it should make logical sense to give her the kind of work she has in mind, at the rates she has in mind. Great. Except she can't make $15 an hour despite her incredible analytical skills, top 1% of the population by any standard. She just has some abstract theory explaining why she is right, but there isn't a market for her skills at the rates she has in mind, or she has no way of accessing that market. Now she has 17 contacts who say they will hire her someday, once they can afford it. Most of those contacts are early-stage entrepreneurs. The framework how much their time is worth doesn't even apply here, because they simply do not have $250 an hour or even $50 an hour to spare at the moment, let alone that her theoretical analysis is not very useful for an early-stage startup. Same story, a person stubbornly clinging to a framework instead of engaging with reality. To elaborate on the last example, there is a barrier to entry to consulting at $250 an hour, which is not just skills, but connections and experience. Experience knowing how to talk people into paying you $250 an hour, and then how to meet their expectations. She doesn't see that without this communication her objective value does not exist. Similarly, there are countless other obstacles that can invalidate a business plan. We simply cannot know in advance if something will scale or not, if something will create value or not, etc. The framework is there so that once you have 10 failures, you can look at them and create an 11th success. It cannot be used to manufacture success at first attempt because real-life experience is needed to interpret the framework, and to keep interpreting it day to day. Bandcamp is a shitty service that people use for a few bucks a month and is making a killing. Creating a cheap-to-use but cookie-cutter community-style thing for urban producers could work nicely. Need or want, without those two you have nothing. The point is though, like Nike says, just do it. Fail, then do it again, only this time better. Repeat. Here are my thoughts on. Unless I'm understanding this wrong, is something you'd have in a perfect world. Reality is the world is not perfect. I haven't stalked your story, but I'm fairly sure I've read on the forum and possibly in your books, I don't recall, that was your fast lane business. I'm sure it's changed a lot over the years, but my interpretation is that it's kind of a mix of a lead generation or dropshipping business. There's probably a better term, but stay with me here. You didn't own each and every limo. You didn't employ limo drivers. So did you have complete control? No. Did you have enough of it to make fast lane cash? Yes. Literally none of my businesses fully meet the criteria right now. I don't make crazy money, but I'm beginning to understand how the fast lane works. A ton of my friends make insane money without meeting as well. Even if you find the perfect compliant business model, does it begin with complete control? Maybe you have to start by selling your time so you can effectively learn how to sell other people's time? maybe almost definitely you need to outsource manufacturing while you build your brand, reputation and revenue to be able to afford a plant or manufacturing or engineering staff. So over the life cycle of a company's development, it may and may not fulfill all of the criteria at all times. And that's okay. You ain't no peon. It feels like SEO is not really needed in terms of small businesses anymore. It definitely violates the commandment of entry with no real skills being needed, and the market is so saturated. I'm curious as to what people's advantages in the industry are. Like the picture of the owner of the thread. Thus you are saying wasting time on thinking is rubbish. But doing something can give experience that makes you take better choice. Not one person or entity could destroy my business. In other words, one company couldn't call me up and say, hey, we quit and boom, I'm out of business. That's the commandment of control. It's about one control apparatus having domain, not a diversification of 5,000 of them who amounted to paying customers. No business is perfectly immune from control issues because we have customers. The same control issues exist in a job. One company says you're fired and you're out of business. Does your business have the same type of arrangement? Where one company can say adios? And your business is effed? If so, you violate control. I think you can extend the framework to second-order or third-order commandments or principles. Kind of like the Greeks in options of second-order Greeks. They go deeper and more complicated than at first sight or prima facie in law. There is nothing wrong with just focusing and mastering one variable of the model. I just saw Instagram apparently removed their likes counter. Completely ruined most influencers' metric. Control commandment calling here. I'm not sure it's necessarily is merely a framework which enables you to measure where you are and assess potential opportunities. I'm really struggling to get started because every idea I come up with, after doing research to understand the opportunity, I realize that the opportunity isn't big enough. Either it's already been done, or I'm struggling to see how I can do things better than what people are currently doing them. I think that applying a framework such as helps to measure the opportunity. However, I am finding it very difficult to get over the hurdle. I am struggling because it seems stupid to start something when I believe that the ducks are lined up against me. A limiting belief in my own ability perhaps, or holding the potential competitors on too high of a pedestal. Weak ass whinging post, I know. I guess if you don't shoot, you can't score. I'm struggling to take that approach. You shouldn't be too concerned over thinking whether your idea is done or not. What you need to be thinking is how to twist those ideas into something that's more worthwhile for you in the marketplace. This is an extreme example, but I would go crazy for someone who could create a phone service that doesn't place me with someone who just learned how to speak English or doesn't try to screw me over with stupidly high rates for service that disconnects every other second. Don't be ridiculous. It's important to acknowledge your faults here and there. If you kept to yourself, you wouldn't be able to receive help on these sorts of things, since everyone wouldn't know where to begin. For years, micro-property development funding in township areas was non-existent in South Africa. But that still didn't stop me from developing 2 properties with my own money. And a lot of other developers had done the same until lending companies started noticing the trend in 2018. Now in 2019, lending institutes are funding these developers. If you think about it, my business was almost impossible to scale sent up quickly until this year. Now I have an opportunity to scale my property business faster than I ever though. Guess what? The lending companies will only select micro developers who have years of experience in the sector. People like me, who stuck around even though there was very little hope we could ever be noticed by the big dogs. Some businesses cannot be built from scratch. CD, a company that manufactures toilet paper. Toilet paper production meets but entry is tough for someone who has empty pockets. Why? because you need to buy industrial machinery and rent industrial space. Or you may choose to import toilet paper from China, but there is still high entry barriers there because you need to have buying power. What you can do is start other small businesses and save the money for your fast lane business. I see lots of millionaires where I live who started with smaller businesses and have managed to save up enough to buy big industrial machinery. The fast lane is not as straightforward as the books say. Just start something and start it now. I guess the issue is that at the minute I'm chasing money as opposed to providing value. I've read the book. It makes logical sense. I'm just being lazy and thinking about it. Thanks both for the responses. Yup. I am guilty of this. Good thread all, lots of gold here. I'm glad you posted this clarification, because after I read I thought that I had to have the perfect business, or else the business wizard would come out from the sky and come beat me with a hockey stick. It could have been clarified in the book, but how I interpreted it was that I needed to have all the requirements. I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought this. I'm always telling myself this. While is a major component of what you teach, I knew when starting out that I shouldn't follow it religiously in the early days. Thanks MJ, this is what has given me sleepless nights for the last few weeks. This post comes at the right time. The other extreme though is doing everything and ignoring there. But yes, that's probably still better than doing nothing. My biggest concern when I wanna commit to an idea which doesn't satisfy the is that if then I change route completely I'll probably waste the skills I acquired in that field. For example, I just did an app in the Italian language. I learned a little of code from zero. So maybe I can have another idea for another app. What can happen then is that I get a beautiful idea in another field and I'll start from zero. Bump. Just a reminder that sometimes it's better to just get your feet wet, create value, and earn a profit. Is a high-level, long-game strategy for bigger outcomes. Amazing. I think sometimes it's a matter of giving it a little twist, even if the competition is already there. If you can do that one thing different you can crush it. Is an ideal. Sitting on your ass violates the principles of C, E, N, T and S 100% of the time. Selling lemonade out in front of your house is better than doing nothing. A business that violates almost all principles is better than doing nothing. Yes, that's a point. And it is a strategy, in the sense that you can develop what's weak on to make it stronger on. Focus is the key. The target. I knew this would be a great thread 5 lines in. Although as a new entrepreneur I was money chasing and simply skewing value in small and insignificant ways, I made cash and got good feedback. It fed the feedback loop. Maybe I'm too focused on which is blocking my creativity, I dunno. I'm totally agree about it. The first time that you take action is scary. Take actions when you didn't know where to start and which one are the step-by-step actions, is really difficult. Cause you feel like lost in the ocean. I felt that in my blood and I think many of entrepreneur felt in the exact way one time. BTW, 1 week ago, reading the famous thread I started to see things in another way. I started to call the niche that I aiming cleaning company of my city, high offer and low demand, and something very incredible happened. After 3 years of reading books, watching videos, try to make something like SMMA and another stuffs. The ironic thing is that I called and I specifically answer which are the biggest problems that this companies had passed and still have, and they really quietly told me. There was like a glass of water that poured. I found many commons in their concerns, like personal or hiring problems, marketing problems and many others. An owner of one company says that she likes me and the way of my proposed questions. She offered me to become a salesman for her. This has happened just with an afternoon of interviewing calls, one agenda and a damn pencil. Just because I was truly interested in their problems for figuring out a way for resolve their difficulties. I made a face-to-face interview with she. I like her and she likes my attitude. And read another time The Secrets of the Millionaire Mindset. LOL. Now let's see what happens. I am in the game now. That's for sure not a way for become a fast learner, but while I'm working in this niche I can improve my sales skills and I can get tools for become a better person, and apply what I had and I still learning. Test the market, make new connection, network and figuring out what can I create for deliver value in this niche. I had a similar issue in that before I ever read I had way more business ideas and I was way more creative I felt, and then I read and felt a little discouraged because it wipes out a lot of opportunities. However, I agree that it is important to just take action and see where it leads. For instance, my goal is to develop apps and websites that address pain points in certain apps and services. A translation app, an app which helps connect LP sellers and buyers, and an app that connects people who want to sell and lend books to others, which bypasses the traditional library model which is getting a little outdated. I'm not really able to start developing apps yet since I don't have any experience with it, so right now the best course of action is to learn coding and website development, and consult Wix and Squarespace as well. I'm not ready to launch my ideas, but those are the incremental steps I'm taking towards getting it done. Eventually they will fit the framework. Thank you for saying this. It's very annoying and counterproductive when someone is trying to get into fast lane business and mention some small business like flipping and veterans out of the gate just yell not fast lane. What a great thread and a reminder. Thanks MJ. I started first business well before reading your books and had to learn the hard way and its importance. But that isn't the point. The point is that almost every business at the inception doesn't really meet framework. This morning I did some P90X yoga watching my old CDs that I bought a decade ago. Here is an example of a personal trainer Tony whose business lacks control, entry, time and scale. Holy smokes, he should never have started but he did and he found a way with P90X to get all criteria met. He sold a video training program to millions of people like me. Before reading MFL I was fortunate to speak to a local legend, Brian Scudamore who started 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Today it clearly meets all criteria, but at the inception it didn't. It was a guy with a truck. Barriers to entry? Low. Scale? Haha, right. Time? Yeah. He worked on the truck himself at the start. Now it's the biggest junk removal company in the world because he franchised it. My point is that grit in business to find your way to meeting is far more important than waiting until some magical light bulb moment when you finally have the idea. That means start now and work at it. Take massive action and enjoy the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. So true. The most important thing is to just take action. I'm making merch for my niche-specific social media page. I was surprised to see some of the market my followers respond positively to my first designs. I even got buying signals from a few of them. The business model is in no way except for some control, scale, and need is more just a feeling of being part of the brand, not any real painful need. Yet the market still gave me some buying signals. A business like this won't make me a multimillionaire, but it can give me a good amount of side cash. Just take action. Is it possible to evaluate from position of necessary and sufficient, what required to continue this business and when to stop and let go, because doing everything by trial and error not very efficient I think. I like to think about control like owning it. Nobody can FCK you over that much. More powerful position and strategy.